Well, tonight, a new report says that worldwide military spending jumped almost 4% last year. That is a new record. Now, that's according to the Stockholm International Peace Institute, known as SIPRI. Overall, world military spending came to $2.2 trillion last year, led by the United States, China, and Russia. The biggest jump came here in Europe, which spent 13% more than the year before, and that was led by Russia and Ukraine. Russia's neighbor Finland increased its own spending by 36%. Many other countries, including Germany, pumped up their spending on equipment and personnel following Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Spending was also bumped by rising inflation in many of the world's biggest military powers. All right, I'm going to bring in now Lorenzo Scarrazotto, a research assistant with the SIPRI Military Expenditure and Arms Production Program. He joins me tonight from Stockholm. It's good to have you with us. I mean, these are big numbers, 2 trillion euros worldwide in military expenditures. Let's crunch these numbers. How much of this spending went into, I guess, the hardware, weapons, tanks, fighter jets?
We do not have exact breakdown, but technically countries on average spend a third of them on weapons. So we can say that's mostly the world average. So yes, a third goes into weapons.
And we know that Europe saw about a 13% rise in military spending. I mean, is that an example of Europe catching up after many years that saw its military budgets shrinking?
So yes, when we say Europe, we include also Russia and Ukraine. Western and Central Europe had seen an increase, but a much lower one. We can see how in Central and Western Europe, particularly, military expenditure is high to the level of the Cold War. So yes, this trend started in 2014 when Russia first invaded Ukraine. And since then, we've seen that the military trend kept increasing.
And Lorenzo, if we take out Russia's war in Ukraine, what other drivers do we see behind this massive spending increase?
So yeah, inflation is definitely one of the dampening effects. So we see how countries are spending more, but inflation is damping the effect. So some increases became decreases. But technically, across the world, the geopolitical situation is what is driving these increases. So we've seen how countries in Asia, such as Japan, South Korea, India, increased at least in nominal terms. The fact that inflation brought it down doesn't mean they do not put money in military.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, it's about how much you can get for the money that you're spending. And if you look at the significant spending hikes that we've seen in Asia, for example, China, India, Japan, does this increase in spending, in your opinion, does it signal a looming military conflict in the region?
Well, I'm not sure I can comment on that, but it's definitely an higher threat perception. We've seen how Japan moved away from his 1% policy of GDP and is aiming to increase that. So yes, definitely there's increase in tensions. Whether that is going to convert into conflict remains to be seen.
Lorenzo Scarrazotto with SIPRI. Lorenzo, we appreciate your time and your insights tonight. Thank you.
Thanks for having me.